Welcome to Empowered by AI. I'm Michelle Nutzi Silva. This podcast is for women building what's next and using AI with intention. In Season 6, you'll hear from founders, educators, creatives, and builders who are actually using AI to think better, work smarter, and move with intention. We're learning from conversations about readiness, literacy, and taking action, because every episode gives you ideas you can use immediately. Let's get into it. Heather Robson, welcome. So glad to have you.
Oh, Michelle, thank you. I am excited to be here.
Yay. Okay. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? And then I want to dive into asking you some questions.
Absolutely. So my name's Heather Robson. I am a content marketer and copywriter. I specialize in the user experience. So user experience is usually something we think about in terms of design. I love to bring those principles into our marketing copy to improve how we are messaging for people so that it's easier for them to see where they fit in, how the product's going to help them, what they're supposed to do next, and what they can expect when they do it. And so by improving the user experience, a lot of times we just make that customer journey easier and really prime our prospect to say yes when it's time to say yes. And we also signal to people who we're not a good fit for, hey, it's okay. Our product's not for everyone. And that's cool. And that helps us really help the people that we're best meant to serve.
And you talk a lot about removing friction, right? Where do you most often see that friction show up? Anybody going to think that their marketing problem is traffic, maybe not messaging and not realizing something? I want to learn from you.
All right, excellent. And so the first thing I want to say is we do as marketers, we tend to look at all friction as bad friction. We think, okay, friction is something we don't want. We need to remove the friction. And a lot of times, yes, that makes sense. It is good to remove friction. If we have friction, we're more likely to lose people as they take steps through our funnel or through our customer journey. But sometimes friction can be good. Friction can be qualifying. So if we are intentional with the friction that we put into the process, we can make sure the leads coming through are well qualified and going to be really good potential prospects for us. Where we get into trouble is when we introduce friction without thinking about it. And this happens for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons it happens is we're really close to our product. We know everything about it. We have a certain way of talking about it. We have a lingo. And it's really easy to forget. One of the hardest things for us to do as marketers is to put ourselves in the mind of our audience, of our prospect, and to see how they're looking at things. And so we can introduce friction in our messaging by assuming knowledge in our prospect that they don't have, or by talking down to our prospect, assuming that they don't have knowledge that they do. So we need to be in a conversation with our audience to kind of understand where they're at, what they know, what they're aware of, and then meet them where they are in a respectful way. So that's one way that friction gets introduced. The other way that friction gets introduced is that we write in a vacuum. We're working on a landing page and we are very excited about that landing page. And we don't really stop and think, how are people finding this landing page? What are they seeing just before they get to this landing page? And then conversely, what are they going to go do after this landing page? We can reduce friction by understanding where we are in the process. So I always encourage my clients to kind of pull back a little bit. Where are we at in the process? Yes, we're here, but how does that fit into the bigger picture? And when we keep that in mind, we have the chance to reduce friction. So friction that we put in there without intention, not great. But sometimes we'll say, you know what, I want to ask a few more questions here so that I can qualify people, but that's intentional.
Yeah. And I absolutely loved your idea of an event boundary as being one of those moments of you wouldn't even think of that as friction. But when you explained that as, have you ever walked into a room and not remembered why you wanted to go into that room? I was, oh my God, I feel so seen.
Right?
How many times I have been like, wait, What am I doing?
Why am I here? Mhm.
And I blame it on not being present, but you had another explanation for it that I absolutely love. Can you dive into that just a little bit?
Yeah. So it's funny because I talked about this on LinkedIn in terms of email marketing, and I talked about it in another place in terms of why the new year really is a perfect time to set new goals and resolutions. A lot of people will say, hey, the new year, it's just another day. You don't have to do anything different that day, and you don't have to. But it's backed by neuroscience. There is a thing that happens when we cross through a doorway. When we walk through a doorway, it's an event boundary, and our mind does a little reset. It just says, okay, new slate, fresh, everything is fresh now. What are we doing? And so if you're going into another room to find the remote or to find your glasses or to look for your car keys, you walk through that doorway and your mind says, fresh slate. And you're standing there going, I know I came in here for a reason. And a lot of times as we approach a certain age, we start to say, oh, well, I guess my mind just isn't as sharp as it used to be. But if you think back to when you were younger, it happened to you then too, because it happens to everybody. It's a real neurological thing that we do. Same thing happens with significant dates. We have kind of a fresh start. We do that at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the month, particularly at the beginning of the year. So it is a good time to evaluate and think, how am I going to move forward? But this is really important for marketers because anytime somebody clicks a link online and it takes them to a new page, they've hit an event boundary. And if you don't immediately remind them why they are there, there is a chance they're going to be like, wait, what was I here for? What was I hoping to accomplish? Not going to happen to everyone, but there's a certain percentage of your audience who is excited about that step. And then if there's any distraction around them at all, and they hit that event boundary and you don't have a good tie-in to where they came from, you might lose them. And so we're accidentally introducing some friction that way. So I was going to talk a little bit about, how we think about this as marketers. And so I think for a long time, the way we thought about things as marketers was, when you write, we start with the ad, we start with the awareness. Okay, we've got the ad, we've got the email, and then we need to make the landing page or the destination match that. Visibility is getting to be so important, particularly with the rise of AI. There's a saying that brand mentions are the new backlinks. And so we want people reaching our destination pages, our landing pages, our content pillars from a lot of different places. So we need to be thinking about how are we going to write these ads? How are we going to write these emails to set people up to land on that landing page or that content post? So we start with the destination and then we work out from.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. And a lot of us are feeling like our email marketing should be working better, but we can't diagnose why it's not. I really would love to hear from you and from your zone of genius. Like, what is that first signal that you look for to spot what the issue might be?
So it's hard. I take a real holistic approach to most things. So I'm not necessarily going to zero in on one signal. I'm going to hope that my client's going to work with me to look at a lot of different signals. We're going to look at open rates. They're not reliable, but we can look at trends and get some good feel for our open rates going up. Are they going down? What's happening there? We're going to look at click-through rates. We're going to look at, are people replying to our emails? We want to be inviting people to reply to our emails. We kind of balk at that. Is it going to make us too busy? But that is like by far the best engagement signal for our email providers that people want to be getting what we're sending is that people are replying when we ask them to. I'm going to be looking at, things like what happens if they click on it and they get to a page. What are they doing on that page? Have we set them up well? What is our segmentation like? What is our brand voice like? So there are a lot of signals I'm going to be looking at, but there are really three ways that our email marketing can go wrong. We can break trust, we can be confusing, or we can be irrelevant. And if we're doing any of those things, things are probably going. So if as I'm looking through these signals, one of the things I'm going to be looking for is, am I seeing a steady decline in open rates? Like people sign up and they're interested at first and they're kind of clicking through. That signifies relevance. But then if that activity starts to cater or crater, that is going to indicate to me maybe we're breaking trust somewhere. So we're going to want to fix that. And if we're getting click throughs, but they seem weird, they're kind of sporadic. Some are really high, some are really low. That can indicate to me that maybe some of our messages just aren't really hitting where we want to in terms of relevance. Or if we have, kind of what we think of, this is what the email's purpose is, but people are clicking other links in the email, we might have a clarity issue. So the behavior within the email is really what I'm going to want to look at to try and help fix those things.
And you mentioned before that customers aren't thinking in these neat compartmentalized journeys.
Right.
And so oftentimes when we talk about the customer journey, we're kind of made to think about it in that way. But given the reality that they're not, what do you think we should prioritize first if we want to improve that experience and not have to rebuild everything?
Right. We don't want to have to rebuild everything. We're going to have assets that are worth working with.
Yeah.
So the thing that I like to think about is, we have a destination and we have people that are coming onto a highway to get to a destination. There are a lot of on-ramps. There are a lot of off-ramps. There are maybe some pit stops and some side quests that people go on to this destination. So a couple of things we want to be thinking about. First, we want to look at our really, the best advice is start with the places that are already getting attention. How are people getting into your highway? And then how can we improve the experience of those? So we want to be thinking about how much time do people have to give? So if we can identify who is this particular, as they come in on this on-ramp, is this for somebody who is really aware of the problem, or are they still researching it? Are they in a comparison phase? Are they trying to figure out, what features they need from a product? Are they ready to buy? And then really make sure that we are targeting that piece to that level of awareness, but giving ways for people to skip ahead. So if somebody comes in and we think this piece is really for somebody who's early stages, they're going to be researching. But it turns out this individual is actually like, I'm ready to buy. We want to give them an easy way to skip ahead to, right, just a quick button. Already know you want this. Here's where you go. But if, say, they're in the comparison phase, that's who we're writing to. We're writing to people in the comparison phase. We want to make sure that we give them a way to skip ahead, or if they're still in the research phase, an easy link to get caught up with other pieces. And then we just want to make sure that we're providing a lot of ways for people to stay on our highway. So we don't want to dead end any of our content. If somebody gets to the end of a content piece, what would they want to do next? We either want to give them a clear next step or set a clear expectation. It's going to be another email coming in 2 days. Make sure you don't miss it. Something along those lines. So rather than thinking of it as a journey that we're in control of, I like to think of it as a highway that people are kind of getting on and off of. And I just want to help them see where they're going as quickly as possible based on what on-ramp they've used to get back on the journey. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And it's a lot more complicated, I think, than people think initially. They're like, oh, I have these people. I just want to keep in touch with them. I just want to keep my name on their radar. But you really do drive home the idea of building trust. And I know giving them a sense of what they can continue to do with you, where they can go. I know that's a piece of it, but are there other concrete, tangible ways that we can be writing to build that trust faster? Because we're relying on that relationship building.
Right.
Each one of these emails, each one of these moments with our potential client or customer is an opportunity.
So one of the things that I really suggest, particularly with AI being part of the mix right now, AI is a wonderful tool. I love to use it in a lot of ways, but one of the risks that it does present if we lean on it too much for our writing is that it starts to make us sound the same as other people in our industry. So a couple of things that you can do to really stand out, really connect with your audience, build that trust. The first one I tell my clients is let's lean into your values. What is the story that you are writing that your customer is going to want to be a part of? Regenerative farming is one that I love to use as an example for this. Like, by eating products from regenerative farms, you're nourishing your family, but you're also helping to rebuild the land. That's a story that a customer can really decide, I want to be a part of that. So if you have a story, a mission, that by purchasing your product, using your service, your audience is also going to be a part of. Lean into that story, touch on that. But even if it's just your values in terms of how you feel about your prospects, what transformation you want to help bring about in their lives, what you want for them, expressing those values in your messaging, making sure that's part of things is a really good way to build trust, because chances are your ideal audience is going to share those same values. And so that really creates a tight bond. So that's one, lean into your values. And the second one, lean into your voice. You want to have a strong brand voice. You don't want people to read something you've written and think, this was written by a corporate communications team. Not that I have anything against communications people. I think they're wonderful. You want this to feel like it's coming from a person who cares about the person who is reading it and who has quirks and manners of speaking and ways that they make you feel. My favorite way to do this that I think is really straightforward actually comes from Anne Handley. Everybody writes. I don't know if you'll know her, but if you don't, you should get her book.
Yeah, for sure.
So she suggests thinking about 3 adjectives that you would like people to, if you weren't in the room, describe your writing as. Do you want them to call it quirky? Do you want them to call it irreverent? Do you want them to call it bold, patient, accessible, honest? It just should be honest, so don't use that as one of your adjectives. Assume honesty and then add on 3 more. And also think about 3 adjectives where you would be just mortified if you heard somebody describe your copy as, arrogant or condescending or stuffy, if you get those like 6, the 3 you want and the 3 that you do want, you can usually kind of get a good feel for what your brand voice is going to be. And then when you review copy, you can just look at it and be like, and are these things coming through? Is the volume up on these traits? And that can really humanize you and make your written word on the screen carry your personality through to your reader. And then the third one, and I think it's really important, is transparency. So we tend to think of transparency as, I made a mistake and I'm really sorry. I own the mistake. Here's how I'm going to fix it. That's a really important part of transparency. Absolutely. But transparency is also, my product works best for people with these problems. And if you don't have these problems, my product's probably not for you. My product works best for people at this level of understanding. If you're not there yet, my product is probably not for you. So it's leaning into your benefits, but it's also helping your audience to self-filter, to see, is this for me or not? That's a really good way to be transparent. And then, just kind of acknowledging, where you're going in the future, how you want to grow, what values, again, what your values are and how those are going to show up. All of these are things that make us seem more transparent to our readers.
Oh, yeah. And that level of honesty, I think, is what differentiates you. And I've heard in what you were just saying right now, a lot of ways that AI can accidentally increase friction.
Yes.
Through that, just if you're copying and pasting, chances are you're creating some fiction. But I know you have a particular way that you like to use AI that actually decreases that. Would you like to talk about that for a minute? Because
I would love to talk about that for me.
people are doing this, and this is so important.
So yeah, as a writer, one of the first things I started hearing about was, AI is going to start doing so much of the writing. And people are like, okay, well, what does that look like? And I played with the tool early on and I was like, well, it may be a threat in the future, but it's not a threat yet. I don't know if you remember in the early days, I was really good at this paragraph essay. It's like me trained this on a lot of high school writing. It's gotten more sophisticated. It can actually write pretty well, but the danger with AI is it is taking the average. It's the average of knowledge, what is most common out there. It is the average of voice, the average of sentence structure, the average of word choice, and putting that in there. So there is a risk of starting to sound the same. And for people who are creative professionals or who are founders or who just have a business and they're looking to connect with their audience, the thing that makes you stand out are the differences that you have from the way everybody else is thinking and the differences that you have in your voice. So you want to guard those very, very closely. And that means not handing off the writing to AI. That said, AI tools can actually help you streamline your own writing process without compromising your voice. And the number one way that I like to do this is to actually have the AI tool interview me on what I'm about to write about. I don't do this every time because Sometimes I already know what's in my head in terms of the structure, but if I'm just starting to work out on a piece or I'm struggling at all, instead of going into AI and saying, hey, could you give me an outline for this? I'll go in and say, hey, I'm writing about this topic. Could you pretend like you're this person and could you interview me?
I love that. Are you up for modeling a little bit of that process?
Absolutely.
Can we have you
Absolutely.
share screen? All right.
Okay.
So if you are tuning in, I want to make sure that you pull over to the side of the road if you're driving and take a minute to watch this. Or if you want, get yourself over to YouTube and watch this portion because I love that you're going to show us how to do this.
Okay, but I do have to warn you. So I'm going to put a prompt in here and I'm going to start typing. So you're going to see what a terrible typist I am.
No judgment. No, just
There
typing
will be.
skills drop as soon as someone's watching.
All right. So the prompt I'm putting in is I'm going to write an article about building a presence on LinkedIn. I'd like you to interview me as though you're a freelance professional, writer, designer, coach who wants to use LinkedIn as a source of business growth, but isn't sure how. Please ask one question at a time. If after I answer you have a follow-up question, please ask it, but limit follow-up questions to 2 before changing to a new topic. I'd like to have 3 to 5 main sections in this article. Do you need clarification? And so there are a couple of things I want to highlight in this prompt before I start interacting with chat. And the first one is that I am telling it exactly what I'm doing. I'm writing this article and I'm giving it the topic. I'm also asking it to interview me as a member of the audience I'm writing to, because I want to be thinking about what these folks need to know. And then I'm giving it some context for the way that I like it to do questions. You can do that however you want. You could say, just ask me 5 questions right away. I like to do the one question at a time and follow up. I feel like it helps me drill down. And then it's really helpful to actually ask chat to, do you need clarification at the end? A lot of times it'll just say, nah, I'm good. But sometimes it'll come back and say, actually, it would be really helpful if I knew these other things. Or another thing you can do, just side tip, is after you write a prompt in, doesn't have to be this prompt, but any prompt, you can ask it to optimize the prompt before processing. And it will go in and fix your prompt to make it better and then actually do the stuff. So a couple of fun little tips for AI.
Help me help you.
AI is a far better prompt writer than you are, than any of us are. And so asking it to optimize can yield some really good results. All right, so Chad says, no clarification needed. I've got it. I'll interview you as a freelance professional who wants to grow their business via LinkedIn but feels unsure how. Ask one question at a time, allow up to 2 follow-ups per topic, and shape this toward 3 to 5 clear article sections. So let's start with section 1, motivation and friction. Question 1, as a freelancer, what originally made you consider LinkedIn as a potential source of business growth, and what made you hesitate or feel uncertain about using it consistently? And now I'm just going to have a conversation with chat. So I'm going to say that's a great question. So I joined LinkedIn more than a decade ago and have used it sporadically. So I'm just now telling my story. I'm just giving it an answer since. And then I'm going to say recently, it's really grown. It's allowing professionals to cultivate large audiences, which can open the door to a lot of opportunities. I don't know if it's helpful for me to talk as I type. I always feel like the silence is awkward.
Not a problem. You go for it.
All right. The question about consistency is one that a lot of writers and other professionals struggle with, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
I get really good results when I post regularly, but it's easy to fall out of the habit. And I'm just going to go ahead. I might, as I'm doing this, if I were writing a real article, explore that a little bit more, but I'm just going to go ahead and enter what I have here so far so we can look at its follow-up questions. So I love this because it's pushing me to be more specific. When you say really good results from posting regularly, what's it look like in concrete terms for you? More visibility, conversations, leads, confidence, something else. So I'm going to say when I post regularly, my audience grows steadily, but without other things happening, that's just a vanity metric. The concrete things that happen are more conversations, and those conversations have led to me landing several clients, often with less effort than feels fair.
I love it.
Yeah. And so then it's going to come back and it's going to say it likes the less effort than feels fair line. If LinkedIn can work that well for you, what do you think actually causes you and other freelancers to fall out of the habit anyway? What's the real friction point? So I'm going to say this goes for any marketing method. It works. You get busy. The marketing is the first thing to go.
It's time.
It's time. So it's critical to reserve time to keep up with the habit. I'm going to say it's also helpful to think of it as a practice, something you can come back to when it slips, rather than feeling embarrassed about it slipping. So what's happening here is everything's in my own words. We're digging into my own thoughts. It's obviously not in article format at this point. But I'm going to be able to pull this over. I'm going to be able to download this all. I'm going to be able to delete the prompts. And then I'm going to be able to very quickly just edit my own work to create an article. It's also going to highlight as I go through if I have any gaps in knowledge, if I have things that I need to jot down as I should probably do some research on this, or maybe I need to interview a subject matter expert on this. So it's going to give me ideas of where I need to go out and find additional information. And then the other way I like to use ChatGPT after I get the whole article written, I like to bring it back in and say, okay, now imagine you're a freelance writer or a freelance professional who's looking to build presence on LinkedIn for this particular topic. Can you read through this article and tell me where you would get bored, where you would get confused, where it reads awkwardly, what questions you feel like you still have? And it will give me an evaluation to let me know where it lags, where I can tighten it up. And a lot of times it's just a little tweak here or there. So it's a very useful, I call it a thinking tool rather than a writing tool. It can help me write faster. It can help me write better. But if I do it this way, I don't compromise my voice, and it's my ideas organized, not necessarily organized the way I would organize them because chat's asking me the questions in order. But I love that chat's coming in as my target audience. So there's probably a chance this is the order they're looking for the information in.
That is absolutely fascinating. And I love the flipping of the switch because it's so many people go to ChatGPT for an output.
Yes.
And that is where we're limiting ourselves. You are going to ChatGPT for an interaction.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. That is exactly how I use ChatGPT. It didn't take me long. You know, humans, we're wired for efficiency. We're always like, we have hardwiring in our brain, which is thinking, how can I be more efficient here if I don't have to do that? I'm going to do that. That works so well for so many things. It's not great for writing because writing is part of how we think. Writing things down, whether it's journaling or writing them in a professional capacity like I do, is how we clarify our thoughts. And so if we stop writing and let something else writing for us, our thinking is going to get muddier. Our creativity is going to get muddier. But one of the things I do as a writer is I talk to other writers about my ideas, and that talking is part of thinking too. And I get their feedback on it. Well, now, you know, if I have an idea at 3 a.m, I can come in and say, you know, I have an idea and here's how I'm thinking it would go. And here's, you know, what I'm excited about. Here's what I'm worried about. What do you think of this idea? And you do have to ask it, be brutal with me. Be honest with me. Be polite, but very direct. Otherwise, it does like to just tell you you're pretty brilliant. It's getting better about that stuff.
Yes, I definitely, I had to go into settings because I noted you're using ChatGPT 5.2. And for my experience with that model, it was sickeningly sweet and kind. And so I had to go into settings and say, okay, here's who I want you to be. I want
do
you
this
to be, I want a toe the line mentor. And I want you to look at things with a critical eye. And so once I did that in the settings, I found that it was a little bit better. Little bit better. I still
better.
occasionally say, slow your roll. Nothing I do is all that brilliant. Come on now.
If you want ChatGPT to be sassier, there's a version called Monday. You can find it in the custom GPTs. And Monday is like talking to a jaded Gen Xer who does reluctantly want to be proud of you and support you, but is also going to call you fun stuff.
I might need to find Monday. I love that. This is absolutely fantastic. I love this as almost like an antidote to the just looking at ChatGPT as an output machine. That's absolutely fantastic. Oh my goodness. All right.
So we could keep going, but I feel like that gets boring watching me just kind of do
this is perfect. This is a tease, right? Someone's gonna look at this and be like, wait, I gotta try this. So I think this is the perfect spot to pause. Let's let the listener know, where are they going to connect with you? Because they're going to want to share when they have these fantastic interactions. Now they're going to be like, Heather.
I would love for you to connect with me. The social I do is LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Heather Robson, Robson, over on LinkedIn. But I also, for any of our business owners out there who are looking at content marketing and just thinking, this is not working the way that it used to. You're right. It is not working the way that it used to. And I actually have put together a product to help you. It's a service, but it's a productized service to help businesses to get their content engine working again in the AI landscape. And I've got a special little bonus in there just for listeners of the Empowered by AI podcast. So you can find that at uxcopywriting.com/empowered. So uxcopywriting.com/empowered.
Absolutely love it. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge. And most of all, I really appreciate you making me think about this a little bit differently.
Excellent. I am so glad that I could be here and talk about some of the things I love to talk about, user experience, but also talk a little bit about how to use this incredibly powerful tool to help us be better thinkers, not weaker thinkers. So I appreciate that opportunity very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Empowered by AI, and I'm your host, Michelle Muncy Silva. If something from this episode clicked, don't let it stop here. Take one idea and try it out this week. And if you want to go deeper, head over to the Empowered by AI, the Slay Effect YouTube channel, where you can watch demos and walkthroughs from our guests today and so many others. Like, subscribe, and join us there so you don't miss out on what's coming next. All the links and resources are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.